Proper public notice,
It's been
affirmation?
properly publicly posted.
Excellent. Audience to visitors, anyone at this time care to make a comment? Anyone online? Not hearing any. So we'll move to item 4, approve the minutes from our June 5th meeting. Can I get a motion to bring it to the floor?
Move.
And a second?
Second.
Tiebreaker, you pick.
I'll withdraw my second.
Any comments, questions?
Motion.
Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So review of vouchers. It seemed pretty standard to me when I looked over. Does anyone have questions on the vouchers as they came through at the email? No? All right. Then we'll move to county clerk. County clerk office report.
Not too much to report. Obviously we're in the throes of the August primary election. Ballots are being mailed. The clerks all have their materials. So, that's about it. It's keeping us kind of busy right now.
Okay.
I am having, I wish I could remember who, something to do with the state or the feds or somebody can come and do like an election security assessment kind of thing.
Like audit?
Yeah.
Is it norm? Is that
It was through the
normally
county
happen?
association.
Oh.
It was something that they offered to come and do, and I said, "Oh, whatever, come on in and do it."
Okay.
Is it just for the county itself, or will they include any of the municipalities in it?
No, this is just for. I wish I could remember because I scheduled. I think it's next week. Some guy's going to come just to visit the office and look around and say like, "Oh, you should do this or do that, whatever."
Like an assessment or whatever, a review.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly.
Well, maybe you should look that up before he comes.
Yeah, should be more sure.
His name.
No, I have the name, but it's odd, but I just, kind of come back to me now. But we do have like, the state put out like an audit thing, a self audit, so you can do for your own security issues, about making sure you have lighted entrances and this kind of stuff. So it's for the municipalities to look at. So we're working on some of that stuff. Having contingency plans. All on the radar this fall.
That was a great report, Jerry.
Didn't tell you much, but thank you.
All right.
Next time I'll be more prepared.
Thanks, Sherry. All right, we're moving to human resources, compensation classification policies.
Great. I'm just going to walk you through this. So we provided you with a copy of our current policy and then a copy of the proposed policy. The proposed policy came from our wage consultant as part of our salary schedule that we just adopted. My proposal is basically we're scrapping our old policy and adopting the new. In reviewing, there was nothing that we would be worth keeping. So just going through the document there, the first two items provide a description of the position placement and the titles. Item C, I think is important to highlight for new hires. For new hires with minimum qualifications and experience, they would be placed at step 1. Anyone from step 1 to step 6 would need the approval of the HR director, in addition to the department head, obviously. And then if we had extenuating circumstances where we would need to place above step 6, that would be approved by myself. And then also important to note, there's considerations of other current employees within the salary range and classification must be considered before approval above step 1 occurs. So we're looking at those current employees to make sure that if possible, we are avoiding any compression issues. And we'll get into the compression piece in a second here. Salary schedule adjustments. So those would be the cost of living adjustments approved by the board annually as part of the budgeting process and would be effective January 1st. Employees not performing to the county standards will have their annual increase held until performance improves and is approved by the department head and the HR director. That's not something that's currently happening now. So that would be a change with our department heads. We brought this up at the last department head meeting as well, and I feel like it was well received. Employees in range may receive an additional increase above the cost of living if approved by the county board. We discussed this a little bit when we were looking at the salary schedule, that if for those that are in range, if you never do an increase above and beyond cost of living, they'll never hit the cap for that position. And so you want people to work towards that. But if all it is cost of living, they just kind of get stuck in that range.
Because the range moves up.
Because the range moves, yep. This would address how we handle promotions, demotions, and transfers. With the compression piece, additional adjustment of pay may be considered by the HR director as long as it doesn't take the new hire or the promotion above step 6. And again, above step 6 there with the administrative coordinator approval. This would allow for us to make adjustments within a department if for some reason when we're hiring a new employee, we would need to place them at or above someone who's been here for a couple of years.
So let's talk about that for a second. Being able to hire for experience is super helpful. I understand that. But what is going to be your metrics to do that? Like, are you going to have some sort of proven work history of X amount of years? Like, what is going to, because in the past, there's been often different philosophies that you don't have experience in the county, so therefore it is not translatable. So you start at the bottom. I don't know if that's, I don't have an opinion. That's just been like a practice, because often that makes it clean, because then you're not being subjective with interpreting somebody's experience on paper without proven experience. And so how are you, because now it's falling on you and you to make sometimes subjective decisions. Do you have a metrics in place to do that?
Unfortunately, it may have to be a case-by-case basis due to the fact that it's also going to depend on how difficult or how challenging it is to recruit that position. How long the position has been open, how long we've been attempting to fill it, but then also depending on what the position is. Some position may depend on if you have that county background or government background, and some, if you're an RN, it may not depend, that may not be a difference. So I know Melina does have a metrics that she had previously sent me when I first started. What we would probably do is reach out to her for direction.
I would suggest having some form in place as to how you determine who gets to start above.
Mm-hmm.
So mostly so you can
be consistent.
have it be consistent and not have to justify those actions.
Yeah, the consistency is something that we're really looking to implement, because it's not necessarily something that's happened over the last few years with a lot of positions, which is kind of how some of these positions got really funky.
Yep.
So consistency is key.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the compression piece while we're on it? Position. So the position control addresses the importance of job descriptions and their placement on our wage scale. This also outlines a process for a new position or increased status change request. You have sample forms in there. Those would just have to be tweaked a little bit. But the personal action form, the job description, and the financial analysis. I like this a lot better than what we're doing now. It actually is a very holistic approach to it, where we're considering every aspect of it. So I'm excited for that. And then the pay grade evaluation request can be made by department heads, would come to have to be made by July 1st, would come to me, would be included as part of the budget process and effective January 1st.
Okay.
I should share as well, I did send this out to department heads to review, and I only received feedback from one of them, and they were good questions. They were through, so.
Okay. Wade.
Number 4 under salary administration talks about market adjustment. And I think that's referring to the sort of 3 to 5 year review that Melina had discussed, like kind of a periodic check-in with the market to see if we're keeping up. that accurate?
You read it one more time before I answer it.
Or maybe that's something different. Because I guess I might be wrong, because she was talking about that 3 to 5 year thing being more of a global.
Yeah, this
To be more specific.
But if under 3 to 5 years, we are identifying that we're out of market based on trends, I think that's what this is addressing. But in 3 to 5 years, we should be going back to the
Right.
consultant to get.
And so could you just clarify, the term classification comes up in there and it's not particularly prevalent in the rest of the document. Can you explain what specifically that means? Is that job description? Is that position on pay grade? What is classification?
I believe it's pertaining to the job description and where it's being placed on the pay grade isn't.
Yeah, so if you look under position titles for consistency and classification structure, all positions within the county's salary schedule are assigned an official title. So where they're placed on the salary schedule, as far as, we have the steps A through Y, how that title is classed within that step. I do believe, I know what you're saying about the market adjustment piece. I think that one right there is specific to a particular classification and not as a whole, which we could run into. For example, the issue that we had with recruitment with Vernon Manor during COVID, and when we did those big increase. So we, in our discussions with Milena too, she's like, you could have used your current structure and done it differently rather than putting them all up 2 steps.
Yep.
So that gives us the ability to make adjustments based on what's happening with the market. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, and then I guess kind of just piggybacking on that, it maybe doesn't need to be in here, but there isn't really any discussion of that periodic external consultation or review. And if that's something that we want to, sort of codify as a regular process, we may want to include.
Isn't that a policy now?
I thought it was mentioned.
Maybe I missed it.
I don't think it's a policy now. We agreed and budgeted to do a comprehensive wage study. And that's what the result, this is my understanding, the result is what we're basing this off of. But in those findings, it was also recommended that every 3 to 5 years, you go back and do not a full analysis like we did here, but a pulse,
right,
for lack of a better term. And I think what you're asking is, should that be part of this document?
Right. And she was even suggesting, the 3 to 5 year window might be a bit lax or something,
long.
A bit long in the current environment. It might be more like 2 to 3 years. So
I think it has to do with whether or not you're having trouble retaining. I think that this.
And if you're keeping up, I think that was part of it.
Why spend another $80,000? Why put it in policy that we have to spend this money if we're keeping up and, no problems hiring, people aren't leaving because of wages.
Or we haven't hit the ceiling. And,
Like that. I mean, to put it in a policy that we have to do it, that would, be probably unnecessary. We might have to do it before the 3 to 5 years.
Right.
I think it would be up to our recommendation to bring that back to you guys and say, okay, we're seeing some, inconsistencies, some compressions. Can we consider reevaluating it again? Kind of like what happened this past year.
Yeah. So part of this, I'm trying to remember exactly where I saw it.
I did too.
On the second page under salary schedule adjustments. So the COLA recommendations will actually come before this committee. So as part of that process, we could provide metrics as far as we actually started doing exit interviews, why people are leaving, what our turnover rate is, where some of these positions are sitting. If we're seeing, that we're losing a lot of employees because of wages, that would help determine what we set that COLA at as well, or if we need to do another market reval.
But we may be caught between that proverbial rock and hard spot where we need to give raises, but we have no money to do it.
Right.
Very well, maybe.
you know,
Well, and that's why
Or
that's
we
been
have-
subject to our ability to pay.
Or the market says we're doing fine and people are still leaving for other opportunities. Does
Right,
this
right.
mean like we're not
Right.
being fine, you know? I don't know. I hear what you're saying. I do wonder if it's more like this is more county policy. I don't know if that's like
Right.
more visionary when it comes to budgeting and if it'll just come to us as it presents. But I also can hear like this had to be re-picked up because it wasn't like clearly outlined.
Yeah.
So I kind of, and we had to kind of go back,
Right.
not totally back, but back a bit. So I,
And that's more what I'm
Do you-
getting at is
yeah.
like, is there, personnel come and go and we have different, perspectives and stuff. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to mitigate that risk of, oops, here we are again.
what would be the harm to just say like, every 2 years there's, I don't have the right words, but every 2 years, not necessarily saying we're going to pay a consultant, but in this policy, every 2 years, the HR manager and administrative coordinator are evaluating our compensation structure and pay structure and will make recommendations for a third-party consultant as needed or something like that. Just so it's like in there. So if these two people, because I hear what you're saying, if we're not here, who knows to even look?
Right.
And it's not committing to a budget. It's just like putting it in policy or practice so someone knows to take a look. We're not committing like we're going to spend a $30,000 market study.
but like on odd numbered years or even numbered years.
Something like that.
You know, because if you say every 2 years and everybody's gone, like, well, did they do that 2 years ago?
That's, yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a great
Number of
point.
years,
Yeah.
HR director.
To take a deeper delve into the
Mhm.
pay schedule.
That seems reasonable. And then it's kind of addressing that. Let's not make this completely fall off because people forgot to do it.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
So I think that could be a 0.5 right by your hand. Right underneath the 4 that Wade had brought up.
Like under market.
I think in the full report that she had given last week, I do believe there was a section that talked about,
There is. I know there
and
is.
it just wasn't included in this. So if we could just add that piece into this.
Mhm.
And then we could identify that it's up, that we're responsible for it. Because
Yeah.
I don't think in that policy it necessarily said that it's, or in that report, that it's necessarily our duty to do it. So we can add that in here. So we can add whatever verbiage she used, but I basically just wrote down every 2 years in even numbered years. The compensation structure shall be evaluated by the HR director and administrative coordinator to ensure wages remain competitive to the market.
And a report presented to the general committee.
Yep. I haven't gotten that far.
I like that.
And that's the conclusion of the work, right?
And then the only thing that I was the other thing that I remember in her report was establishing metrics as a way of evaluating your position relative to the market. So you mentioned turnover rate and things like that. Like presumably those would be a part of that evaluation.
Yes. Yep.
That's good. Sound good? Okay. So are we taking action?
We would like you to, so.
Okay. Just making
Now that we've
sure.
adopted the schedule, it would be great to have the policy to go along. Okay.
Take action. What action do we need to take? We're gonna
It would be replacing that.
wipe this one out.
Yes.
Is this gonna be 2 policies or just one, like a new 519?
A new 519.
Which
We
is
didn't want to
now
take the time to put
compensation.
it into the format of our employee handbook that wasn't going to be approved. So it doesn't look, we didn't number it or anything, but
Just have a resolution and you guys can
Yeah.
do it. Run with it.
Is this, are we taking this one up at the same time?
yeah,
So before we make a motion on that, you want to do both at the same time?
we can do both of them.
That's gonna be a new 519.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a resolution to take to the county board.
Yep.
To replace current 519 with this one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we've gone through compensation classification policy. Yes?
Mhm.
Any more questions on that?
I did go through position.
And then
control
we've
policy
gone
as
through
well.
position control policy. But it's all gonna be 519.
Yep.
So I need a motion to adopt the new 519 policy with the proposed change that we discussed
As changed, right?
as changed. Wade, can I get a second?
That's right.
Lauren, any more discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Same for personnel, I see, okay. So now we're on to finance director position recruitment.
Yep. All right.
You sounded excited.
I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Ready to talk. Well, do you want to give them the statistics and then
Oh, yeah.
we can go into the proposal here?
So to date, there have been 32 candidates, 11 pre-screens, scheduled, which I mean, they all showed up, but scheduled 4 in-person interviews and a current total recruitment cost of $4,634.64.
How much?
$4,006. Here. It's that bullet right there.
And we began this
You can keep that.
Thank you.
in
March.
March.
Yeah.
Okay. Carrie, I just wanted to get, I can't remember.
Yeah. So we're going on 4 months. Last month you asked me to reach out to some of these other counties that had used public administration associates. I got 2 responses to my email, but Grant County was one of them. They right one here. The position, their finance director position was 2 months. He said we tried to fill it on our own, but decided we need to reach out further. So discuss this hire with public administration associates as we discussed hiring the first Grant County administrator. So this was for their finance director. They're actually, and this is part of his response, but they were happy with the recruitment process. They're using them again for their administrator recruitment.
What county was that?
Grant. He said they brought in multiple qualified candidates. Grant County on their own did not fill their first round of recruitment, but public administration associates brought in candidates that met our standards the second round. The first round of candidates they had were more regional, while the second round were more like what you typically see in recruitment of Southwest Wisconsin. From start to finish, the process took 4 months with public administration associates. The other one I had was Kewaunee County. He said we use public administration associates to fill the administrator position. We tried to fill the position on our own before turning to public administration associates. They filled it within the timetable they had promised. They were happy. They were able to find highly qualified candidates we did not find on our own. I was extremely happy with the services. I would definitely use them again. The board is completely satisfied with the services they provided. The other piece of this was the payment schedule that you asked me to address. So as part of the proposal, the total cost would be $18,600. 1/3 is due upon approval of the recruitment documents, 1/3 upon selection of the finalists, and 1/3 upon confirmation of the finance director by the county.
Wait, say that again. 1/3.
Upon approval of recruitment documents, 1/3 upon selection of the finalists, and 1/3 upon confirmation of the finance director.
So if they don't get the bottom 2, which we're assuming they will, then we don't pay them.
Right.
We're just paying 1/3 to get the party started.
You pay 1/3 to get the party started, and then when they bring in candidates, you pay the other 1/3
Finalists, yeah,
finalists. Who determines finalists?
we work with them on that, but they do like a lot of like the pre-selection stuff that we've been doing. That honestly is a little
Daunting, but they also have that networking. You know, that's what they do. That's what they focus on. So they already know people around the nation that are doing this job and have that background and have that experience. Where I've about spent our local, you know, the surrounding states
The final third is based on successful hire or
Confirmation of the finance director by the county. So,
hire?
Yeah.
um,
Okay, thank you.
since that position has been vacant, we've saved $41,601 in not paying a finance director. I did use, no, let's not just keep it on.
Or we're gonna be
Um,
administrator.
We did expend $13,000 to pay the CPA to do the cash reconciliation, but there still is enough money in the budget for this recruitment proposal with the money we've saved with not paying a finance director.
Under this scenario, and I am now for this, okay? The part that I'm unclear of is, you did quite a bit of recruiting and stuff, and what if like next week after you go into this for 1/3, Jim Smith drops out of someplace and says, I will take this job, and he knows nothing about the recruitment process that we've hired outside of that. Do we still have to, continue our contract with the consultants when we have actually, it's almost like a real estate deal where you're holding this in reserve, where I'm not going to pay because I already got this guy thinking about it. So is there some way that could be written into the contract that if, we hire somebody that you have nothing to do with,
I would have to confirm that with them. Typically, historically, when I've dealt with recruiting companies, they require you to remove all posting.
Okay.
So I no longer would have any posts out on the web anywhere where someone could potentially apply because they want to have that full control at that point. I haven't worked with this specific company before, so I can't say that that's the way that they operate because someone could still walk in the street and say, here's my application. You can't stop that from happening.
Right.
I will say though, we just had a conversation yesterday about how our amount of candidates for this position is like completely dropped off.
Yes.
Like one a week and not qualified either. And that's even after reposting
Every month I
with the
repost it to
wage.
After this meeting, I bring it back up. So
We might be looking at another 4 months down the road before we get a
Yes.
candidate.
Yep.
So
my assumption would be, would be that initial, we'd be locked in. But then we'd have to look at the agreement once we would receive it on whether or not there would be some type of a clause.
Or maybe you could just say from the time we sign the agreement for the next
Prior to having
15
an
days
offer.
or something, if somebody comes in based on prior posting, that because if they pull everything, which would make sense, so there's some control on where candidates are coming from. But if like within the first 15 days, I'm just making up a time frame,
Right,
but a short window because they couldn't get their resume out in time or whatever. I wonder if that's just at least worth. I mean, you could say this committee who approves it had that concern, and we'd like that considered. That while this transition's happening, if a candidate comes in early on,
You can do it in section D. You just have to pay the second, third. If you cancel,
That's right. Yeah.
if you cancel mid third, you pay the next third to get out.
I know what I would be.
should have read it.
I did read it several times. I did read
But
it.
it's just studied it, put it there.
but what you're proposing is
Same.
like a better deal. I mean,
There is, it does say if the initial search is not successful, they will conduct one additional round.
But we have to pay the advertising cost of that second round.
Much. It's not like we're
I don't
putting
know.
ads
It just,
in the paper.
they will do a second round. Yes, it did say that, but we have to pay the costs.
well, I mean, it depends on what they're using. Some of them can be quite expensive. ZipRecruiter, like all those are very expensive.
Tricia, am I remembering correctly that last month when you gave us this report, you had 4 in-person interviews total at that time?
Yes, we have not.
So you have not had
We had one screening since
last month.
Mhm.
Okay.
that is it. And I believe 4 candidates, like 4.
Applications
Yes.
from
Yeah.
And we're responsible for actual costs of advertising and consultant mileage. Like, be some additional costs.
What's the name of this company?
Public administration section.
So they
So-
focus on public. And that's where we are not finding zero candidates that have any of that public.
I make a motion to
Yeah, one of the two.
enter contract with this company.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a question. How, finance directors are hard right now for like
Yeah.
everybody. What's their experience in actual, I mean, I hear they've been successful in the administrator realm. What about finance director realm?
Well, Grant County got.
Grant County
Oh,
Finance
is that-
Director,
okay.
they also assisted Richland County with their finance director.
Great.
Yep.
So that they're specific, they've done it specific to
Yep.
this.
Well, Richland
I missed
County, if
that
I
part
remember
about that.
right, their position was open for like a year. Is this what they kind of finally decided to do, was to go into the, okay.
They got a CPA, in fact.
Okay. Any more?
Do you know when those two counties worked with
Richland was just last year.
last year?
Yeah, Richland was with them last year, for sure. They just hired a new administrator.
I'm not sure about Grant, but I don't think it was that long ago.
No,
Oh,
I
so-
think, yeah,
Similar.
yeah. Yeah, it's rough.
So do we need to? Does this go to the board? Do we need, is it just part of the budget? Because we haven't spent this yet. Like what part, what's the detail around that?
It's not 25,000. That makes a difference.
As a contract, it doesn't need to go on the board, but as a budget, that's a different question, right?
Yeah, but it's not more than 25,000?
It's not, and it's, and the money's in the budget,
In what budget?
in the
Finance.
Finance director,
And we don't need any additional, you don't have to identify a source of funding.
because we're using,
This is where we get back to the conversation that you and I have had about what are our limitations as far as budget amendments go, that we
Exactly.
haven't clearly defined.
Some people got a little bit anal about what required a resolution.
I'm just asking, so we're like, I'm not thinking it does because they've identified money that was budgeted for a position we're trying to fill.
If you're gonna use finance department funds for this, then I'd say it doesn't have to go.
Yeah, that's my intention. Yeah, because we haven't paid a finance director, so money's there.
What do you, that sound?
I'm comfortable
But it
with
would be a
that.
budget amendment because there's no line item in the finance of recruitment, you know.
That's,
I'm fine with just, you know,
but that's what the debate is about, is at what line item detail are we talking about that the budget's being amended?
I thought it was $25,000.
I think that's,
Different.
I don't know where you're getting that number from.
How about this? We can look into it if it needs to go to finance committee and the board will take it there. If there are defined rules that we have somewhere that say it needs to, we certainly will.
I think we're fine, but I'm asking like the chair what he
I
wants.
think we're fine, but if someone says we're not, I'm fine with that too. It's,
I honestly believe,
I'd like it to be fine, put it that way. I would like it to be fine.
Against
I
it.
don't say,
You're not-
it sounds like anyone's against it. How about Jerry and I look into it for sure? And if it is, I'll take it to finance committee and the board. But if
I think
we
it,
don't find anything definitive that says we have to do it,
certainly have time to get it to the board if it needs to be.
maybe we
Yes.
need to have something on a further discussion about, you know, if the money is in the budget. to do
Yes.
Different things, because it happens all the time
Right.
and it's not, there's nothing consistent going on here, so.
And I feel like this falls under operational and leadership being able to figure it out. We're not asking for a brand new expenditure over $25,000, which I think is where that number comes into
I don't
play.
remember the number, but that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, you're not overspending the finance department budget.
Right.
You're moving some stuff around.
With
It's done that way all over the county.
Yeah, which seems to be like
Mhm.
under the purview of the
Supervising committees, the
holding the committee.
Yeah.
her and, you know, department heads, right? The board approved a budget.
What was your definition of 25 grand? Did you have something?
I thought that was, I don't know why that, I thought if there was a unbudgeted expense of over $25,000, that had to go to the board. Why that sits in my head,
That sits in my
I
head.
can't, I feel like
There's all kinds of things in my head.
that was,
we'll look into it. If nothing
I really
exists
think-
too,
I
and,
feel like that
and we
was
want to
2
define it.
terms ago when Rod was the chair. That just, Just because it's there doesn't mean.
Doesn't mean it's there.
And some things might have changed with the
Yeah.
procurement policy.
That's
And
true.
with that position being in place. But you asked why that number comes up. That's why in my head that comes up. All right.
I think, if there's a line item, finance director, this falls under that line.
Totally.
In my opinion.
I agree.
Was that 25 grand something to do with bidding?
That,
I don't, you're really stretching too far
that's like
back.
never 25 grand, but yes, that does.
There was the 25 grand for that too.
All right, I move we call.
Okay, I think we're good. All in favor of approving to hire, I guess we're hiring them, this contracted,
Accept the proposal.
thank you. I have no words suddenly. Signify by aye.
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 Any opposed?
And then if it has to go to the board, it'll be at the,
We'll have it there.
And you're going to check into that piece about if we find somebody earlier.
Okay, call in incentive policies for sheriff's office and highway department, and I believe something was added to our pile at the end. Am I right about that?
Yes, so yesterday, Public Safety Committee met. And Sheriff did bring a resolution to that committee,
Mhm.
and that is the one that is in front of you now. The committee was in full support. I believe they initialed that resolution. That is what was added today. Otherwise, to give a little bit of history and background, mostly for Wade, since I don't believe we're here when this kind of was brought up. Is he missing something?
I am going to, but it is lost in the stack here. It could be on the bottom of your stack.
Oh, yeah, I think I have that at the bottom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is the one that's online the same as?
There were,
No, I got this yesterday.
So what
So it's
happened was in September of 2022, it was taken to General Government Committee to have our overtime policy mirror that of federal labor standards.
Mhm.
And which means that overtime meant that it was hours worked. Previously, it had been paid leave time, including holiday, comp time, vacation, whatever it may be, would go towards that overtime.
Mhm.
So if someone had one day of vacation, they picked up on a Saturday, that would go to overtime. As of September of 2022, that was changed. It was never taken to full board. When Cassie and I were made aware of this, we decided that we felt that it should come back to general government and then go to full board. During this time, there were concerns expressed due to us having 3 departments that are 24/7. That being the sheriff's office, the highway department, and Vernon Manor and Vernon Acres. Vernon Manor and Vernon Acres have adopted a policy on their own back in September of 22, where they were paying like an incentive pay for their staff. Highway and sheriff's office were running as prior to that 2022. So we just wanted to have clarification. So I recommended that we do a departmental policy to ensure that these 2 departments are compensated for their employees that are needed in emergent situations, since it is a 24/7, both are 24/7 departments. So I have brought 2 separate policies, one for the sheriff's office and one for the highway department, as that incentive that if they are asked to work above and beyond their scheduled shift and they happen to have vacation day that same week, that those hours would be considered overtime, or excuse me, I don't want to use that word. They would be considered incentive and they would be paid at time and a half of their base rate.
Mhm. And paid time off is not considered part of overtime. For this.
Correct.
Okay.
certainly.
Right.
Yes.
Why can't we make this countywide? Just have one policy for all departments?
Because that's what we went away from due to the fact that, for an example, I'll use my department. My assistant is hourly. So if, say she took off on Thursday, and so she's a 40-hour employee, she had 32 hours of work time, 8 hours of vacation time, and then she decided on her own, because obviously my department doesn't have emergent situations, she decided on her own that she was going to stay late on Friday or come in on Saturday. If we adapted something similar to this for all departments, she would then potentially get overtime for her choice of coming in above and beyond her normally scheduled shift. Correct, sorry.
In that scenario though, shouldn't you have to approve that working over 40 hours as your subordinate?
You should. However, if someone comes into work, I cannot not pay them. That would be a disciplinary thing after the fact. But that would not prevent me from not paying them overtime because you can't just remove time on a time card
They
because
were
you're
here,
going
they
to
were
approve it.
working, yeah.
Correct.
You could fire for doing it, but you couldn't.
Correct.
But you still
But not
pay
pay
them.
them.
Correct.
Okay,
So that is why
point taken.
in 2022, why this was brought up.
Go ahead.
Are you thinking? Do you have a comment?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that is why it was brought up, just to follow what the federal labor standards were at that point of it had to be hours worked to account for overtime.
Mm-hmm. Most people adjust their PTO accordingly. That's the part that is always a hiccup for me. Like if you happen to work, not everyone, if you're an hourly employee, work, I don't know, you have 32 hours in, but it turns out to be 33.5 hours and you have an 8-hour PTO day. Most people would back off the PTO hours. Somehow here, that gets calculated into a time and a half equation.
I understand.
It's odd.
I worked at train company under the federal standards.
Yeah.
If I had taken Monday off and I got, voluntary overtime on Saturday, if there was going to be straight time, there ain't no way I'm going in.
So I think it's good to have an incentive policy and make sure that we're not, that was the whole intention. Don't blur the lines. It's not true. According to FSLA, it's not overtime.
Right.
But to make it a universal county thing, like in that HR scenario, I would be saying to my staff, we'll take a couple of PTO hours, put that back in your bank.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just getting paid your 40 hours for the week.
Do we have a PTO? What'd you just say?
A leave to PTO. I don't know what
A, B, C, what?
Where you work an extra 3 hours this week and take 3 hours next week off.
That's comp.
well, that's comp time.
Do we have that?
We do have content.
We do have comp time. Okay.
But that accrues at time and a half. Also,
It's
if you're
truly-
over 40.
Correct, up to 40 hours. I just wanted to ensure that our 24/7 staff are feeling supported and compensated accordingly if they're being called in for emergent situations, flooding, falling, trees down, the sheriff's office, if there's an emergency.
I'm totally in agreement with it. I was just wondering why we couldn't do it
Countywide.
now. I know. So
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's good. It's what we asked. We weren't saying we didn't want to do it. We just want to make sure it's defined the proper way
And being consistent.
and consistent. So this has already been approved by Publix.
No, you are the
You are the
policy
They're recommending.
body from,
So
so
is that-
that's a recommendation.
Oh, I was trying to figure out
Um,
these signatures. Okay.
Yeah. And this did go to infrastructure committee last month as well.
They were also.
They were also supportive.
Alrighty then.
Could I get a motion to approve
He was one
the,
far more wordier than the other.
Wow.
Did anybody notice?
You're not looking at the right thing. This is the actual policy
Here you
for
go.
the sheriff's department.
Still true.
we would make the resolution to go to board. Not like in this case, public safety made.
but one is more
Yeah,
wordy.
Well, where's
there's two, these
There
are
are
the
two.
two policies.
this is the actual policy,
Yes.
which is really nothing more probably than the last paragraph there, resolved. I suppose.
No.
What are you taking to the board?
It will be,
We had intended on taking one resolution.
Okay.
I didn't
That
write.
needs to be drafted.
Mhm.
Oh, I see. So we're
Our
adopting,
intention was to take both of these policies to Gen Gov.
so we're not actually approving this resolution. We're approving these two policies to create a new resolution to go to the board that encompasses both,
Yes.
right?
And
Am
That
I-
was-
that
okay.
policy was in the Gen Gov folder?
Yes.
Can't see it.
do you want it? You can have my
Yes,
copy.
please. Need one for the record.
Okay, so this was
Yeah, this
just
one?
for reference,
He's got that one.
but this is not the resolution we're adopting. We're taking both.
Mhm.
and creating a
That
resolution.
was my intention, unless you want to do something otherwise, but that.
No,
was
that
my-
makes sense, because then that makes it consistent with the departments. Did you have something, Sharon?
We have it drafted in Word format for you. If you approve it, we just did this because there's so many versions of it floating around that.
Well, I think it doesn't encompass,
Doesn't encompass the highway, and our intention was if we're doing two department-specific policies, that we bring them as one resolution to the board.
so it'll probably look like this. It'll just change the.
Yeah.
Change compass.
But I sent Cassie the
Yeah.
Word draft, so you don't have to try to recreate.
Yeah.
things
Mhm.
with it.
I think, we're gonna create and forward a resolution to the board to approve both these policies.
Excellent. Can I get a motion doing that? Dave and Wade. Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. I don't see anything for your report, but yet,
Can I give?
Yeah, go ahead. I forgot. Something happened because it goes on every month's agenda, but I think when I was adding things, it popped off and no one noticed until
I didn't notice.
about 5 minutes ago.
I just noticed.
So it's not an action item, so she could certainly give
Give us
us
a little report.
Okay, so I gave you my printout like I typically do. I can just kind of run through everything. I was able to hire Gina Klum as a human resources intern. She will be with us from now until the end of August to continue on that project of scanning all personnel files. She's also going to UW-Madison for marketing. So I told her that I'd also try to give her some marketing experience too. So she'll be making my newsletters, postings. I told her I could get her in touch with work and any other experience that I could give her prior to going onto school. We also have an accepted offer for the human resource generalist. They will be starting tentatively on August 19th is the potential start date. We've talked about the finance director already. Something that Cassie and I talked about adding to my report every month is the workers' compensation. So I looked back for the month of June, and we did have 3 workers' comp claims. One at the sheriff's office. It was for reporting purpose only, which I do ask for them to do in case it does turn into anything more. And then the 2 other were at Vernon Acres. Both of those situations, they did have to seek medical treatment, but there was no lost time, so there would be no it's not compensatable at all. As far as the wages go, we will just be having to pay the medical. Current balance for the neighborhood family clinic is $38,502. We had 6 new hires since the last meeting and 4 separations of employment. You have any questions about any of those or anything? Current employee count is 424. The following are categorized below. And then current open positions, and then I did kind of list at the end where we're kind of at with those current positions. Our program manager at Vernon Acres has resigned. Will be done on July 12th.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's the accurate. So we are currently recruiting for that along with other positions. Vernon Manor current nursing needs, CNAs, of course, and then 1 full-time nurse or LPN, and then 2 on-call nurse or LPN. And then they are currently using 2 agency staff, 1 CNA and 1 RN. 1 will be done on July 13th and 1 being on August 10th. So we continue to recruit.
Agency staff is.
Mhm. We do have to. Better than it was before.
Considerably.
All right.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
Any questions, Patricia? Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, IT, Department of Help Desk report.
Krista? I warmed it up for you.
Connor, first, thank you for your presentation to the board. I think it's very helpful for people to see those big pictures and big projects. So thank you.
All right. Make this brief, Dave.
Yeah. Would appreciate you.
Help desk report for the month of June. We sat at 259 tickets open in the month of June. Comparatively to where we were at in the month of May, that's 292 tickets open, so a little bit less. But year to date, as in last June of 2023, we're at 261, so relatively similar in nature there. Helped us by category, 65.7% of the tickets opened in June were software related, 11% were hardware, 7.5 were phone system related, 11.4 were employment related, and uncategorized were 4.3%. We had 0 office moves and new office creations in the month of June, so that's good. Open tickets, the help desk health meter is in fair standing. We do have about 10% of those tickets open today, and about 89.9% of those closed. It is the 3rd day of the month, so we're just working diligently on getting those remainder tickets that were opened in June closed out and working through process flow, as well as all the other big projects that have in the docket. We are progressing nicely on our 2024 device replacement progress. We have 24 devices out of 60 implemented. Little over halfway done with the year, so we should have that all completed and closed out by December. They changed up our metrics a little bit to be a little more encompassing of the bigger picture. Phishing attempts, we had 13 failed phishing attempts in the month of June. We sent out simulated phishing attempts. We sent out 607 of those. 248 of staff members reported those simulated phishing attempts. So they recognized that was a malicious email, had malicious intent, or it was a simulated phishing attempt, and they reported it with the fish alert button. And then, unfortunately, 13 of those staff members did either click, enter data, or open an attachment on those emails.
What happened to the other 300?
They ignored it.
Just
They
ignored it?
either deleted it, didn't open it.
Just not open?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that was an option.
It
I
is.
think I sometimes delete them before reporting them.
And
Like when
we
HR is looking for my W-4 lies.
yes. Yeah, we don't get the metrics if you delete them. If you open them, we do get that metric. But that doesn't necessarily count as a failed phishing attempt.
I see.
It would have to be a click into a link and open attachment. You could even, enter information or reply back to the email. That's all tracked and considered a failure. So
Okay.
Because in order to determine whether or not it's a phishing attempt, you generally have to open the email and see.
correct. Yeah. Identify, known attributes that are.
I got one from Brute Box the other day. I was pretty excited about that attempt. Brute Box.
Some of them are pretty sneaky.
Yeah, I know.
And I thought I'd break down, since there's been a lot of curiosity, failures by location. This is in the month of June as well. So we had 3 in the Arlington building, 3 in the sheriff's office, non-jail side, non-corrections. We had 1 in the corrections side. 3 at Vernon Manor, 1 at the annex building here, 1 at Banta, and 1 board member.
We shall remain nameless.
Yes.
All they wanted was my social security.
So the importance of these stimulated phishing attempts is, this is our real metrics for mail flow in June. This is what real emails that we got from the public or some malicious intent to a vernoncounty.org email address that we took action on before it reached the end user or organization. So we had 428 suspicious links, 161 suspicious attachments, 98 attempts of solicitation, 334 attempts of spoofing, 23 attempts of extortion, and then 130 attempts of account email takeover, which that means that someone else on the outside got their account compromised and the malicious party used their account to try to spread malicious intent. So
those green and red arrows, presumably lower than, more than.
yes,
Is that the 7-day window that's shown in the graph? That's what it's comparing to, or?
that's a 30-day look
30-day,
back
okay.
period. So the green arrows means, you know, it was lower than what it was in May.
Gotcha.
And the red up arrow is, you know, higher than what we were tracking the past 30 days. So, yep, this is a 4-week snapshot, or you know, encompassing the month of June. And then some other metrics. We have 3 devices out for repair yet, getting RMA status and needed repairs done on those devices. And then our cumulative system uptime sat at 98.622%, which is a little bit higher than normal. So good uptime for the month of June. In regards to the help desk report, that's all I have. I'll jump right into the department report. Keep it very high level and brief, as I went over a lot of the projects that we were working on and through at this last board meeting. But our next gen 911 project is still underway. We're working through some hurdles to get call paths established currently. Once those hurdles are addressed, we can progress on that implementation of the next gen 911 services. Website redesign is in full swing. Cassie and myself met with all of the departments now and went through their interior pages, or their sub pages contained within the website, and we looked for, you know, inefficiencies, areas that we can consolidate content, clean up any grammatical errors or broken links that may have existed, and just better serve that information to the public as part of the redesign process. Our goal in our model through this redesign process is to bring a more updated and uniform fashion to our site, appearance-wise as well, and then really surfacing that information to have 4 clicks for residents or any site users using our website to surface that information that they're needing.
Meaning you don't want anybody to have to click more than 4 times to get to where they're going?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We start to get into the 5, 6, 7, 8 clicks. I mean, that's consuming our residents' bandwidth as well. And it's not very intuitive. And at that point, it's not heavily valued to surface that information on the site in that fashion, because it'd be easier for a resident to either stop in or pick up the phone. So simplicity is bliss on the website.
And I thought you mentioned something about improving the search function in your report, because right now
Yes.
it's kind of a nightmare.
Correct. Yep. As part of the redesign process, we will be implementing what's called curated search. And curated search is it's a step towards that artificial intelligence model, but it's not using AI to have any of that modeling or framework. But we are parsing through all of the pages, all of the site mapping, and all of the content in the redesign process, and tagging that out with keywords.
Okay.
And then so when a resident or a website user types a keyword or a sentence into that curated search bar, it'll take them right to that content.
Mm.
So if they wanted, typed in marriage license, it would take them right to that subpage on the clerk's, subpage.
Gotcha.
Or any of the other content we serve up. So, we will start building out our .gov domain this month. So we are working with a consultant on that as well, and working through some of those nuances to moving our current domain to a .gov domain. As discussed, that will be pre and post aliased. So we will start to utilize that .gov domain yet this year. But we'll really publicly announce that probably the tail end of this year to early next year for public consumption and public use. So the telephony project is well underway now. We have a go live date scheduled for July 30th at 9 a.m. technically is go live. Email went out yesterday regarding the transition. A high level roadmap of what that will look like. And most importantly, training, staff training. So there's allotted training dates. We have 5 training dates set up for the staff members to utilize. Each one of those training sessions are 1 hour long, and it will teach them how to effectively use the telephony system.
5 sessions for 3 different topics, correct?
5 sessions, 3 different topics. The most important that all staff should attend is the call handling training. And there's 2 sessions of those. Yeah. And then, yeah, maybe I misspoke. 4 sessions, I think. We have an admin session, but yeah. 2 of the call handling, 1 of the team's meetings, and 1 for the mobility aspect. The ERP project is still progressing, working with our CPA consultant on building out the chart of accounts and getting that formulated. But again, having a finance director in that role is really going to be vital to progressing efficiently. In standard order of business and preparing for budget season.
Excellent. Any questions for Connor?
Good job.
Thanks. Was that brief enough?
Hey, we're lucky to have you, Connor, for the small county.
I appreciate that, Tom.
You and your staff really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take up electronic recording of Teams meetings. Oh, wait, I don't know who that is.
It looks like.
Monique, did you have a question?
I did. I was just going to ask Connor regarding the upcoming trainings. One of our staff will be out of the office during that time. I had mentioned that you had said at the department head meeting that there would be generic trainings that someone would be able to attend if they couldn't physically be there. Is that the case, or do you know if these will be recorded for those that can't attend in person?
Yeah, good question. All of the trainings that are personally curated to Vernon County will be recorded and made accessible on the L Drive under IT information, how to, and telephone information.
Fantastic. Thank
and
you.
Then we will also make available those generic trainings via the portal as well. 2 different avenues, but we'll provide recordings of the curated trainings. We'll provide recordings of the generic trainings, and we'll provide more so documentation in a PDF format as well.
Totally impressed as usual, Connor. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Monique.
Okay, any other questions on that? If not, we'll move on to the electronic recording of Teams meetings. Who's taking this?
I can take that one. It was asked upon me to present some information on what it would look like for Vernon County to start recording our publicly accessible meetings. And really it boils down to cost at the end of the day. There is cost associated to storing such a large amount of data over time. I broke it down into a few different items here, but just some quick reference points, and then I'll kind of go through a scenario. To record a virtualized meeting, it will take approximately 1.4 gigs per hour of the meeting. So that's, a storage metric. We have 3 different storage repositories. We have a production storage repository, which is 20 cents per gigabyte per month. We have a backup storage repository, which I will out of confidentiality, I'll refer it to repository A, is 3 cents a gigabyte per month. And backup storage repository B is 26 cents per gigabyte per month. And so if you bolt all of those together, and let's say Vernon County records a 4-hour meeting, let's say general government, we want to record this and it takes about 4 hours. This would cost Vernon County about $2.75 a month for 7 years, because that is the legal requirement to retain that content. And this would equate to $231 to record this 1 4-hour meeting for that 7 years. So
You do the math on how many 4-hour meetings happen in.
I did. Yes.
Math, I see.
Vernon County averages about 17 public meetings per month. This would equate to about $3,927 to retain a month's worth of meetings for that 7-year duration. Now, if we continued that cadence and recorded 17 public meetings month after month for 7 years, of course, this cost will start out gradual and it will build up as we approach the 7-year duration. But the total cost to retain this content at year 7, that year 7 mark, would be $329,868, or $47,000 a year is what I would have to budget for storage retention costs.
Huh. Because you have to make sure it's like safe and protected and
Mhm. And I mean, there's
We're required to retain them.
The
We're
record.
required to have them backed up. We're required to have them stored offsite.
and there's a
that
lot of
is a little-
flavors to that.
Well, I mean, I think this is good information because public perception could be like, well, we see it on Facebook on another, we see it stored elsewhere. Why can't we do it? Or we see them available elsewhere. And the difference is because we have these parameters that we have to store them and then the cost associated. Right? I mean, is that the difference?
Yeah.
Facebook, it's not a public record. We stored it in.
It has to be a public record. But I think that's where this comes up, the
Mhm.
public perception, Tim Hunt, I think he's online, does a great job. He stores a lot of the meetings for the city. And so that I think leads people to think,
Easy peasy.
why can't we do it? And this
And-
is good exercise to explain the details. I mean, I'm not saying we can't do it, but to at least understand
Yeah.
that there's a cost associated.
And, in all fairness, there's content being recorded on a daily basis in, all facets, government and the, private sector alike. But the government has more compliance and regulatory bodies that we need to adhere to and statutory requirements to retain this content. If we save this footage on Meta or on YouTube or, any one of those platforms, sure, that content is made publicly accessible and it's there. But I can't sign my name to the paper and say that storage is meeting the compliance regulatory bodies, number one. And number two, that data will truly be retained for that 7-year duration without the management of backing up that data. Because YouTube could have a breach, they could have data loss at any time, and that it's the county's responsibility to maintain that.
So if we were to take this on, that's what you're saying, like
Mhm.
you could put it out there but we can't guarantee we could maintain
We're ultimately
compliance
the
for it,
record
'cause we're
holder
the
in that
record
case
holder.
and required.
And I would argue that you maybe would have to double that cost because we have to think in terms of having a record that might be accessible to more people versus a secured copy that's not accessible to so many people. Right? So that this is what I talked about a couple of months ago about our whole record retention and using electronic records as our archive. How safe are they? They could be maliciously altered or they could be accidentally altered, right? There should be like 2 sets of things. I know you talk about backups, but we're backing up the same thing, but we should be looking in 2 directions. So we could double that cost, theoretically.
I mean, there's always a risk that we incur more costs under any type of retention because folks are copying that data too. We, as the IT department, take great effort into ensuring that we have the highest level of validity of our content, the highest level of resiliency at the lowest cost possible that is the most advantageous for Vernon County. And we do that in various ways by, data deduplication and things like that, compression and things like that. But at the end of the day, yes, to record all of our public meetings over a 7-year duration and retain that comfortably, we would have to budget $47,000 a year in the IT budget. But that's a variable cost.
Sure.
And it could be more, it could be less. Not all of our public meetings are 4-hour duration meetings. Some of them
But
are,
this is the,
some of them are longer too. So it's variable.
Wade?
Have you looked into audio files?
Audio would be a lot less.
Be a lot less.
Yeah. It's still, it would probably be about, I would venture to guess somewhere about 50%
Okay.
consumption. But I did not run the metrics on that. This was just simply recording the entirety of a Teams meeting.
Lauren?
It would probably take another employee also.
No, it wouldn't. It would just simply be a conscious effort for anybody hosting these public meetings to record them. There would be some, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
but
fine.
there would be some, administrative work to publish that content. So yes, probably, 10 minutes a meeting to publish those, over 17 meetings. So
Tim Hunt, I see your hand up. We can. I would not have the answer to that question. Others?
My only experience with that, Tim, is audio used to create the minutes. So I mean, I don't want to speak as far as interpretation of statutes, but that's my understanding. Like if you're using audio to draft your minutes, that you only have to keep them for 90 days. Beyond that, I don't know.
Oh, versus, because the public record's being created from the audio? Is that what you're saying? Okay. That's good insight. Maybe we could ask Nikki what a 90-day window would look like.
I guess I would seek legal clarification on that, but I was under the impression that by recording and retaining the entirety of a Teams meeting, that becomes the true public record. So that the 7-year retention then would apply on that.
So let's ask Nikki, if the model is, can you keep a recording up for 90 days, knowing that the true record, this is what at least I hear him saying, whether it's audio or a Teams meeting, and that the record is actually the minutes that are created. Just what does that cost, and does that change what we're talking about? It's worth at least understanding. There is a convenience factor for the public, but I wouldn't think the county could, spend almost $50,000 a year to make it happen, but it's worth exploring. because the more public engagement in their local government, the better, really,
Yeah, and those numbers would drastically change if
that was the case.
was true, but
Mhm.
I guess I would.
Is there any merit to, and I'm just asking, like just board meeting, like
I was going to say the same thing.
given, if we're going the 7-year model, you know, if that's what we're talking about, is there merit to the board being recorded in a Teams way? And what would that cost?
117.
$231 times 12.
Is that something to think about?
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. I'd be curious about audio only, be curious about the 90-day window. You know, those factors might change our perception of this whole thing.
You okay coming back with some of that after talking to Nikki? And
Certainly, I can run and formulate the numbers however fit. It's really just constitutes how long we have to retain that and what the cost of storage is. So happy to provide that.
any other questions or about this topic? No?
I think you should address, you know, what we talk about, like, what is the official record, right? Whether we're going to delete these in 7 years or 90 days. Is the record going to be the print minutes or is it going to be these tapes? Because we're going to have to play back tapes because there's the question of, you said,
I would say that it's,
make that
the
distinction.
designation should be the minutes. You're approving the minutes at each meeting.
I agree,
and
but that
that's
should be like a distinction that's made. When you
If we go further, yeah.
Yep.
That's a fair point.
sit here listening to recordings of meetings from last week because Dave said something that he's denying now, you know.
I never,
You did.
And there may be statutory guidance on that too.
Yeah,
It may
I'm not
be-
familiar,
Right.
but right, yeah. Anyway.
Okay, good discussion. Thanks for picking it up. I think it's relevant to be able to answer this question for people who continue to ask for it.
Mhm.
Okay. Buildings and facilities.
proud of you, Connor.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
Bill, come on down.
Got an open seat right here for you.
It's too close.
I know.
It's out of your comfort zone.
I'm gonna start bringing my laptop, so at least it looks like I got something impressive to present.
Why do you think I do it?
Okay, let's start with your department report.
Not a lot going on. Everything's kind of going status quo. No real issues with all the rain. We haven't had any water issues. We do have the RFP out for the new emergency building. That's due 26th of July, I think, give or take. Have had 4 or 5 people call me interested in it, so maybe we'll get some competitive numbers for that. Other than that, all good.
Okay. Well,
I can make stuff up if you want this to last longer, but
That's my job.
Seems like a miracle that we haven't had any water issues. I mean, geez, Louise.
How's the erosion on the county farms? You look on Withers?
the erosion is perfect. None, but they went in a little wet and chopped, which I wouldn't like to see.
Occasional strip farming is helping.
That's where it's at, man. We lucked out and they got their seeding done early. When we did get that 1 4-inch rain, and I didn't notice any erosion. Like you say, you got to chop when you can chop. So there was some rutting of the fields, but nothing horrible. They weren't getting stuck out there. So but other than that, looking ahead, the plots that we're going to do our prairie plantings and tree plantings and stuff, we're going to end up spraying that off. We didn't get it done this spring, so we'll spray it off and potentially do a fall planting for the prairie, and the trees for sure will get planted this fall on the walnuts.
Excellent.
I think that's better anyway. Fall planting for us.
That's, I mean, the jury's out, but I've done both ways and I've had, good success one way, good success the other way. So there will be at some point, I don't know if Land and Water is going to be able to secure funding for the seed. I think the trees are covered, but the prairie planting based on, I don't know, I'm assuming you're leaving that up to myself and whoever else has an opinion on what we want to plant as far as the prairie. That can get kind of pricey, but we'll kind of play that by ear, whether Land and Water can find any grants for it. And based on the budget I have left at that time of year, what goodies we're going to put in the ground.
Okay.
Where is that? What kind of land is that going in on? What's it currently being used for?
It was farmland.
Okay.
The biggest plot is below the highway shop, below our erosion, stormwater pond. And that was always a wet area.
Uh-huh.
And we had some issues with water down there. So we talked about taking that out of production for a year anyway, so we could get in there with a bulldozer. Because there was some old buildings down there and old fence lines that never got taken out, and the water was settling. Sediment was causing wet issues where the production wasn't that great. It's kind of out of the way, so that was a good piece to take out of production. And then we have some 3-corner pieces that they can't hardly get in with their big equipment. So then we took out, and they're going to help with the erosion things as well, if we get the prairies established. And then the area above the highway shop, where my biggest concerns were about the erosion, that's actually seeded down now, and knock on wood, so far it's held well.
And those other areas are still in production?
Nope, they're laying idle right now. But they say we're going to have to do some kind of weed control.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for the tree planting, you don't want a lot of residue left on the ground. So we're going to probably end up spraying them off. And then the highway will maintain them till fall. Keep them down so we don't have a bunch of residue on them when we do, especially our prairie planting, because that'll be no-till. So we'll keep that under control.
It's a small step, but a giant step, given their mindset in the past.
No, I'm really happy with the way the farm's looking right now.
Good job, Phil.
All right, you want to talk solar lease proposal from Nokomis Energy?
Nokomis, Mark is online.
Yes.
Okay,
Hello.
there he is. He will have at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to present a proposal here. So I've reached out to Phil and want to just quickly share my screen here. My company, Nokomis Energy, we're a clean energy developer out of Minneapolis. We've been involved in over 40 solar projects in Excel territory. Predominantly, that has been on the Minnesota side. And let me know if you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Nokomis. So effectively, predominantly, our efforts are in community solar, which is a program that's going on in Minnesota, allowing us to build community solar gardens. In Wisconsin, Excel territory, what we're looking at is a program that's a direct to utility, where effectively we're looking to provide some energy directly to Excel. And so we're looking at possible land sites, and we identified one that met certain criteria for us to explore a 15 megawatt system, which is the maximum system size. And so I reached out to Phil and I expressed our interest in leasing for a period of 25 years, a section of county land in which we would look to develop and then ultimately construct a large solar garden. So effectively what we did was we talked about, this county farmland, I think that was just being discussed, and where could it make sense to build a solar system. And what we've identified after speaking with Phil is this location that is east of the highway department building. And I can share with you here, let me go to a PDF, because I sent a proposal. Effectively, I'm happy to walk through this, and if you want to share any questions you all have, just feel free to jump in. But effectively, what we're looking to do is to lease a section of land for a 25-year period and effectively build a mini power plant on site. The energy would go straight to Excel, but with that, solar is a slow and long process to ultimately get built. And so odds are it would take at least 3 years before we even put a shovel in the dirt if we were to look at signing an agreement this year. So what we do is our lease is technically in 2 parts in one document. The first is a development phase. You could look at it somewhat as an option. of which the Nokomis would pay to the county $2,500 to retain the rights to build that system on site. But we have to run through a series of traps, both with Excel and with governing bodies, and then ultimately to see from a financial sense if building a system makes sense. And so that's a kind of a long process. But during that time, we pay a nominal fee to retain those rights. And as time goes on, if we get the go ahead that the system can be built and we financially it makes sense, then the lease would then shift into an operating lease. We would construct a system in this area, and the terms that we're looking at would be $1,000 per acre in year one, and with a 2% annual escalator over time. And we're looking at a 25-year agreement with 2 5-year options that would be likely to be exercised. So it's probably more fair to think of this as a 35-year agreement. So we're talking about 85 acres. And so what that would look like from a cash flow perspective would be in year one of construction, once the system is energized, it's an $85,000 payment. And, I'm not sure of the terms of what your farming agreements are today, but, this could be viewed and against that because you would be taking that income out and this farmland out for this period of time, of which after the system has run its course, the system can be removed and the land can be restored and be farmed again. So all in all, we're looking at a cash flow opportunity with the development period, and then on top of the lease payments over a 25-year period. And this is actually looking at potentially over a 35-year period, almost $4.3 million would be the collective cash flow. I can get into the details of solar itself if you're interested, but at a high level, what we're looking at again is leasing farmland for energy production, and this energy, a question I would imagine would come from you or from residents in the county or in the area. This energy is being sold directly to Excel. It is not a community solar program where entities or residents can subscribe. That is not a program that is set up currently for Excel within Wisconsin. So there may be some questions about community solar. This is not that kind of a program. It doesn't exist currently, or we're not looking at that for this land.
Okay.
And I do have a system layout. This is again to be determined, but effectively, it's a bunch of modules. It's really what it is. So the solar itself, and by the way, we are assuming that this, there's a title for it that is called in here. Whatever this shoreline, I think is what it is in the county GIS. They call it some kind of a shoreline, this black line right here. We're assuming that it can be built over. If not, we may need to adjust, but there will need to be some on-site and some things, but again, we're kind of doing this at a high level to gauge your interest. But effectively, it's the construction of the system is steel beams, driven in 12, 15 feet into the ground, and almost all of the modules and the inverters are all above ground. So we're not looking at a lot of concrete and footings being placed in, which really allows for the land to be restored quite easily after it's done. A question a lot of people have is, you're disturbing the land. What happens if Nokomis goes belly up in 15 years? That you all are maybe aware, but generally there is regulations and rules for us to get our permit that state that we have to put money into a bond on the front end that allows for the decommissioning and restoration. So effectively putting that money aside so that it's there if, hopefully not, but if something were to happen in which we were not around to remove the system ourselves, there's money for that performance to be done.
Wade, do you have a question?
Yeah. On the summary page under landowner agreement during the option years, it says 2,500 per lease year. And then on the page you have on your screen right now, it shows 5,000 per year.
Yes. My apologies. I believe that we would be able to do, I think the 5,000 is a mistype, but that's something that's open to negotiation.
Thanks.
Just paid for your salary, Mike.
Yeah,
It's pretty low bar.
I mentioned the bond, you mentioned it isn't big for anybody either.
Say that again.
The performance bond, there's no mention of that in the agreement.
So the question is.
No, and this is super high level. Again, our lease document is 26 pages, so it would be within the lease itself, and naturally, if depending upon the route it needs to take to receive approval, if this was a private entity, the next step would be we answer some questions, but ultimately we would then send a lease for redline comment.
What do you do to maintain the weeds and the property itself if this was to go through and you had your solar panels up? What type of maintenance is done?
Yeah, so typically we look at mowing 2 times per year. We'll plant seeds for it to turn into a pollinator habitat to try to reduce some of that. But ultimately, weeding is as needed, but generally speaking, about 2 times per year. And if things do get unwieldy in certain areas, we do have an army of goats on call that we bring out from time to time to feed on the weeds.
Thank you.
But ultimately, that is our responsibility, and we understand that maintaining that provides is good for business. We want as much power generation as we can, and we want to be sure that we're creating an environment where we're not inviting trouble of any kind.
Yeah, I'm a committee member, but I agree with the goats, but around my farm, the solar panels are grazed with Amish sheep, and they do an excellent job of keeping everything down, thistles, broadleaf.
There we go.
My solar
in your area, this is up for, and this really may not matter, but we have oriented the system to use a single axis tracker. So effectively, these panels have a east-west configuration, and they have a motorized tilt that tracks the sun. But in our kind of poking around in this area, we found the topography to be quite hilly, and so if that's the case, we may have to go to a fixed tilt at 20-25 degrees due south. That's just a variance that could come up, but currently I'm saying on this design we are showing panels in a row like this to be tracking the sun east-west, and ultimately that provides more production. We're adding moving parts, but that is not the county responsibility. Effectively, the way the lease reads, you are leasing your land, and there's no more responsibility really on your end, and production and monitoring and all these things fall on Nokomis.
For the development period, you said that can be 5 years. How long is the development period?
It is a 5-year period, but again, that's a window. But typically speaking, we're probably looking at about 3 years. And with that, we do our best to communicate when it comes to if the land is being farmed, letting you know ahead of time. A good example of this is I just signed a lease at the end of last year, and the farmer asked me what chances there were of his land being developed next fall. And he's like, if it's going to be developed next fall, I'll plant beans instead of corn. And we said, looking at this, we're probably looking at a spring 26 timeline, so go ahead and plant corn. That's kind of letting people know ahead of time, again, that there is not a surprise when it comes to that. There is a provision within the lease that equates to an umbrella term called crop damage. And so if we are selecting a time for construction or doing something that effectively puts the farmer or the county out during that period, then we look to provide some monetary compensation for that. You know, our entire goal of this is that the county in this case is not having to answer or to go without, and that ultimately, you know, there's as little disturbance to your current operation, and it's a flip the switch and then go from there. And so if there's hiccups in there when it comes to payment and those things, then, you know, we have this umbrella term to try and cover that.
Okay.
Mark,
Any other- oh, go ahead.
sorry. Mark, is Nokomis working with any other southwestern Wisconsin counties that might serve as references for us?
Good question. We are not. So we're working with a few other private parties, and some of which we are further in development and planning on putting construction timetables together. But we have some governmental partners on the Minnesota side, but none in Wisconsin. And you know, I will admit our Wisconsin efforts are relatively new. But Nokomis has been around for about 7 years, and the vast majority of our projects are in Excel Minnesota territory, and that is largely due to the community solar program. We just kind of, you know, went where it was greenest, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But I'm happy if you have questions just in working with other governmental agencies and groups. I'm happy to share some county contacts that we've worked with on smaller projects. The projects on the Minnesota side were limited up until this year. We're limited to a 1 megawatt system. So we were looking at 7 to 10 acres, and that program has since grown this year to 5 megawatts. So you're looking at 30 to 40 acres, and now in Wisconsin, you know, ultimately it's 15 megawatts. So, you know, much larger projects on this side of the state.
Okay. Any more questions for Mark? Before we talk more? No? So,
Thanks, Mark.
thank you, Mark.
Mark, thank you.
All right, thank you all. I look forward to an update, and you all have a safe and happy 4th.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I like the idea. Good concept, good return for the taxpayers in Vernon County.
What's our current lease rate?
313.
311. An acre.
Does that stay relatively static year to year, or, I mean, I know we negotiated every couple of months.
Yeah, it's a 5-year contract.
Okay.
I mean, it varies. I mean, last cycle was 265.
Okay.
Not that many years ago, it was 220. Who knows what it'll be 10 years from now.
I guess I'm for solar, not really wild about taking ag land out. Just on general principles, you know, that we put ours, so you probably didn't see it when you were down there, our whole milking parlor we just went live with our solar down there.
Why taking county ag land out? Just because taking agriculture land.
Right, we gotta eat.
General.
People gotta
It's in theory. Okay.
And I thought about that too.
I just wanted clarification on what you meant by that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I thought, well, we're not being in competition with the other land farmers that are actually trying to make a living farming.
It's not taking the whole county farm.
No.
Basically,
There's
the
still,
East Farm.
yeah, so there's
There
still
was
the opportunity.
85 acres, I think he had on there. And then that's actually where we're doing one of our larger prairie plantings over there. And I didn't know they tried to integrate prairie seed into the solar land, you know, as well. So that, as far as the pollinator area,
Mhm.
and that's where our mostly wooded areas are on the county farm. So that's why in discussions with him, I thought this would be the best spot.
Mhm.
I mean, it started out, and I don't know if it's an option. I didn't ask him. I can, if a smaller tract would be just as attractive as the 85 acres. Because the initial conversation was 30 to 40.
Do they take, you said the wooded areas, do they take the woods out then?
No.
No?
And my understanding is that they squared up. I noticed they had an overlay of the one wooded area up there on that knob to the north of the highway, but I don't know if that was
Just kind of trimming the edges like.
Yeah.
And it's tricky to find 85 acres of rooftops.
And that's, I think, what attracted them to us is they scoping out Wisconsin and say, hey, they got,
Right.
300 acres all in one spot.
I don't know why, but we had two, I don't know if this was this company, we had two farmers in Harmony that turned it down. They just said no.
Mm-hmm.
Say it's not this company, but I know you get down by Grant County, towards Madison, I got some huge areas down there that they're doing this with.
The 2,000 acre one.
Yeah.
Dodge.
Jeez.
I don't know. I feel like it's we talk often about how do we find a creative way to increase revenue at the
Right,
county,
exactly.
and this seems innovative. We're not completely taking ag off the table. There's still, so I don't think it would be responsible not to continue to explore this.
I think we need to continue to explore it. I think that's.
Farming the sun.
Farming the sun.
Well, I'm not trying to sell it, but when you want to talk about the county setting the example,
Yeah, exactly.
solar, prairie, tree planting, agriculture. I mean, not everybody's got 400 acres of land to work with, but set an example. For, and the revenue stream is quite attractive as well. And once it gets established, that particular area, which is our highly erodible area,
Mhm.
you don't have to worry about that anymore the next 25
You
years.
said they need to be near a substation or something like that to make it viable.
I don't know where the Excel transfer switch would be.
You gotta have it near there.
Well, and he's the one that cherry picked this piece of property when my initial conversation, when he shared his screen with me. So it must work.
I was wondering if something like that could be installed over the top of a landfill.
A historical point. When we were selling land to the city of Morocco a couple years ago, Rod Opti made a good point that the acreage that we were selling at the current rental rate, it would take 85 years to recoup that type of return. And that was selling it. Here we're keeping the land
Mhm.
and still showing
Incredible.
incredible return on. And then it could be reverted back to farmland at the end.
Mhm.
Is there any like future plans for expansion on the county building in that?
If you notice on the map, we still have our area.
Okay.
That's not taken out of our options, so we can go to the south and the east if we need to.
You kept that in reserve.
So what are next steps?
Somebody
Continue
present it to the
talking.
board and see. I mean, I can, unless it, to me, it's gauge the interest of the full board.
Okay.
If they're on board, then sit down and start working out details. And obviously get Nikki involved and, come up with a harder proposal with the 26-page document that they send with. And, but if the full board doesn't have interest in it, then
Then we know.
Would we not put this out for an RFP for other companies that may be interested?
Yeah, good question. Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it has to be.
Based on our current policy, I would think so.
Do we do that with farm leases now?
We did.
You did.
Yeah. Providing equal opportunity for use of the land. And I'm guessing if Nikki were here, that's the route she would go. I can have that conversation with her.
Well, so then who presents to the full board? Like if we're gonna
Before
take
we
it
do
to
that?
RFP, I mean, it would
you
seem,
have to express the interest before you would do an RFP.
right,
if
so
the
it'd be a
full board's not
little, it
interested.
would seem hey, Mark, can you present to the full board, but then like we're gonna RFP
Mhm.
you?
Do
I mean,
we-
I don't know. I'm just trying to sort that out.
Depending on something, you shouldn't have a prospective bidder do the presentation.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm,
I think probably just present it to the board to see if the board is interested
Right.
in going to an RFP on it.
with examples of the return, like the information we received and the potential examples of what the return would be.
Yeah, I mean, we can use,
Not handing these out, but maybe give information that relatively similar.
Okay,
General information specific to the company.
and even these are, up subject to negotiation. And so these could be sort of benchmarks.
Here's an
potential-
example.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't imagine another company coming in and bidding on it, but there might be 20 companies that come in and bid on it. And we did an RFP for ours down there. We had 3 or 4 companies that were really close on, putting in our system down there.
okay. So are you presenting to the board?
I'm too.
I think you should check with Nikki on the need for the RFP, because this is a specialized thing, and I think even with IT, we had to waive some of that because there's only certain vendors you can negotiate with to make it happen.
And I don't know part of it, or, obviously with a home solar it'd be different, but if they need to hook into the main line or however they do it and sell the energy, so I don't know who else is in the area that would have that capability.
There must be others in Wisconsin.
But in your case, they were selling you something. In this case, these people are going to invest several $1 million and have
Hook into
to
Excel.
work out an agreement with Excel. So Excel is going to have to approve
Right.
the company and stuff
It's
like
more
that.
comparable to buying a Ford truck instead of a international truck that you have discretion. You don't have to RFP it.
That's why I think we should check. with
Yeah.
Nikki. It's a
Yeah, because what
specialized.
are we RFPing? Like like a community solar? What's the RFP? Going directly to Excel?
This is exclusive to Excel.
Right,
Mhm.
just trying to understand. So you're saying get with Nikki and get clarification on if we need an RFP
It might be
and what it would be.
because it's a specialized type service almost in a way, limited people. This may be the only company that
Okay.
can do it. So there's not a need and therefore not a reason to muddy it.
Well, there may not be a reason in terms of like fairness to potential bidders, but there may be a reason in terms of advantage to the county. We may get
Alternate proposal.
more favorable terms. Seems unlikely looking at this, right? It seems like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But
But I wasn't saying it from that perspective. I was, it's just, when you think in terms of a specialized service, we're like how many people is Excel, how many companies are Excel Energy working with to do this in Wisconsin?
right.
This may be the only company
But maybe Excel is not,
sponsoring.
well, maybe Excel is not necessarily a fixed factor in this. Maybe the RFP is 85 acres to lease for a distributed solar garden, whatever the generic terminology is. And another company comes in and says, we'll sell it to Alliant.
I see.
I don't know that Alliant has lines here.
I'm
But
just
I
saying,
understand what
as an
you're saying.
example.
But anyway,
I mean, I don't know, Ethos put ours in. Are they capable or, is that something they could take on even? I don't know. I mean, that's what their scope is.
Takes a big wallet to develop 85 acres.
There's a big one out there right now, between Westby and Cashin. And I don't know who put it in. I mean,
let's put that out
By
there.
Westby. There are goats out there.
yeah.
That's just for an electric. There's one up towards Cashin.
I don't know who put it in. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so let's just get a little bit more in the RFP, but point taken, like where maybe there's the same thing with a different company.
Right. I think the sort of generic proposal is, do we want to portion off a section of the county farm or solar production? at a lease rate.
With the potential of getting $12 an acre.
Right,
I think
right.
that's the question.
Yeah.
That's,
Do we
yeah.
want
Keep it generic and
Yeah.
just see if the board's interested.
And if we do, maybe there are other companies that do that kind of thing. There's tweaks to their structure or whatever, but
And that's consistent, like to go back to Nakoma, say this is consistent to what we do. Like we have to send RFPs out. So we're not trying to undermine
Yeah,
his
so
effort here,
not that any of us know anybody there.
but we have to do our
The
process.
potential that, Cassie, her future husband is the director of that. We don't know that. We need to avoid that.
There you go.
I'm just saying that, just to avoid that.
Want to record
That's-
meetings?
It's our process to do
Right,
fair
yeah.
procedure, and
Transparent.
RFP does that.
To be transparent.
So we do we want to craft a motion taking it to county board in some fashion?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, if the county board's not interested in it, then it's kind of a moot point.
right.
Right.
You could hash out all those RFP details after the
Later,
board meeting.
right.
I'd say, what does it look like going to the county board? Should we have a resolution that just says, question, shall we pursue this, and see if it passes or fails, or how does the county board going to vote? Has to be on the agenda, not necessarily a binding vote, but just like, how do we get that on?
Exploring the potential for a solar farm. Are you up for it? Or are you
Possible
against
action item.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, there would be no need for resolution, just an agenda item, and then we just take
I
it from
think
there.
that's fine.
Mhm.
Maybe that's okay.
Do we want to do that this month?
Do I have his card back at the office?
I say yes. I'm just
Yeah,
Yeah. we could do it.
asking.
I got 100.
because we don't,
Gotta do it.
and we don't need a ton of.
I got 100 acre site.
If that's the only thing on the agenda, then we'll just do it next month. Have one.
Oh, we'll have other things on the agenda this month.
I appreciate that thought, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put that intention out there, see what it comes.
Yeah.
I don't think you need any action on it, then we'll just have it on the agenda.
Okay. You feel fine?
I'm fine with it.
Great.
That's all we need to do is just
Kind of exciting.
gauge their support.
I agree.
All right. Anything more on that?
All right.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks, Dave.
Nikki is in court today, so there's nothing on legal policy unless you have
Not really,
something.
no. She's been working on some debt collection stuff with Vernon Manor. Her and Karen are working on that taxation ordinance that we just passed. It looks like there are some tweaks that might need to be made to that, so they're working on that.
On which one?
That the in-rem, the
Yeah.
taxation one that we just approved at county board.
Did she, has she addressed the issue with the dams, that resolution?
The last time I had asked her, she had not received the resolution to review yet,
When was that?
and I have not either. A couple weeks ago.
For the dam?
It's on the
You haven't
agenda.
gotten it
It's
yet?
on the agenda. I haven't seen it. So thank you for that reminder. I will ask for it.
Yeah, it's on
On
the
whose agenda? Not ours.
conservation education.
Yeah.
Next week.
Used to
So
be,
do they need to approve it? Well, no, Nikki would have to approve it before it goes to them.
Should. We can talk more about that, but the comment that was made at the last meeting was that she hadn't reviewed it yet, but she hadn't even received it yet. So
Well, and that's what we heard.
review something she hasn't received.
That's what that committee heard last month, was that there was no resolution available yet. So
yeah,
Who's drafting it?
I think
Monroe County,
the three counties in collaboration are
across Monroe.
consistent.
So it's not a holdup on Nikki.
No.
She actually hasn't received anything to move forward,
Right.
but, so that needs,
Their meeting on Thursday.
Okay. they're not next week.
Next week, Thursday. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anything else on legal? All right. Resolution authorizing Vernon County enter into the settlement agreement with Kroger Company and agree to the terms on the addendum to the MOU allocating settlement proceedings.
All right.
I assume this is you.
This is me. The opioid settlement. So, end of 22, beginning of 23, I think the county signed off on, the settlement. So we are, as Wisconsin County, we are a party to the national, opioid, settlement agreement. They brought forth a new claim against Kroger. So we basically need to say we're not going to sue Kroger on our own. We are going to continue as part of this this settlement agreement, but we need that in resolution form. So you have the memo that outlines the steps that we have to take. This is due back no later than August 12th. So that's why you're seeing it now. It has to be approved by the county board.
This is the same law firm that's been handling
The same attorneys that have been handling everything for the Wisconsin counties. I get lots of correspondence on all of this. So I've also included the draft resolution and updated it to reflect our county, but pretty much nothing else in there has changed. And then just for a point of reference, our current projected payment total through 2038 is $1,348,749. So we do have the opioid abatement and prevention committee that is tasked with distribution of those funds. So they meet pretty much monthly.
That 1.3 million is prior to this additional Kroger settlement?
Yes.
So this would be on top of that?
But they don't know exactly what the amounts would be or anything. Yeah.
And the county committee is already making disbursements.
Yes.
This is adding to that.
Yep. This is adding to our original settlement.
It's very specific what the money has to.
Yes. Yes.
I think they had some signs up or billboards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, they've
whatever.
that committee has basically established the grant program. We approved for basically educational billboards. The health department purchased medication lock boxes. And then at their last meeting, they approved 2 grants worth $25,000 for peer support, one through the library in Coon Valley and one working in the jail here.
So this is just getting us to, under the recommendation of our current attorney, and to continue to go after
Yes, those settlement
the
funds.
settlement funds.
Yep.
Kathy, remind me to give you some information that I have on that for, that they could do something with drug take back.
Okay.
Well, not on the agenda, but I'll mention it later.
Anybody have any questions on this? I get a motion to approve resolution. I guess
Second.
resolution number. Yes, number, okay.
Second.
Lawler and Egan.
It's the comedy team of Lawler and Egan.
When do
Okay.
we tour, Dave?
Where are those dates?
I think we're going to perform at the fair.
Lord.
On this stage. I'll be there with tomatoes.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I got eggs.
Okay, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? I wonder, will they just keep coming with more?
I don't know.
I mean,
Almost anybody with a pharmacy,
right, like is Walgreens next and
Walmart.
Yeah,
That's
there's-
surprising.
I think Walgreens
Walgreens
is part of
part of
the
the first one.
original.
Yep, CVS, I saw Walmart,
yeah.
CVS and stuff in
Yeah.
there somewhere.
We had a whole list.
The first one.
Right.
And then with bankruptcies and then this,
All right. Administrative coordinators reports.
Right, try and be quick.
is it,
We're doing good.
is this addendum
We are.
something separate or no?
It's referenced in the resolution and the memo. Yep. Continue to work with BSJ on a perspective management agreement. Basically what happened was we were working off an agreement from the 80s. There was a transition in CEOs with BSJ, and ultimately it was decided that we would start from scratch with a management agreement because there were a lot of things that didn't exist in the 80s, such as IT. So there were a lot of questions as to how certain things were going to be handled. So I'm hoping to have a preliminary contract in time for the Board of Trustees meeting scheduled for next Friday, July 12th. Kim, BSJ's CEO, is actually meeting with their attorney that they're working with on that agreement early next week. So
Is that going to the board this month?
it depends on if we have an agreement in time. But when I talked to Kevin, I'm sorry, not Kevin, Bruce yesterday, we felt like that might be rushing it a little bit.
Okay.
Like we want Nikki to have time to review it. So even if we do get it next week, I think we may wait until August.
Okay.
Yeah. We're also looking at, I provided BSJ with a list of employees, their PTO balances, their current rates. So we're looking at ways to make those employees
So it might just be too
during the transition. And then one thing we would also do before it would go to board, once we know exactly what it would look like for the employee piece of it, is we would hold meetings there at Vernon Manor and Vernon Acres for the employees so they can understand the process as well.
Are they being kept informed over there?
I've been told they are.
Okay, because the one that I'm talking to says she's comfortable. So not wild, but comfortable.
I think last month we talked about kind of getting back to the same issue with the solar. Like, is this one of those things that we would be required to go to RFP if the board decides we want to enter into a management agreement with a private entity?
I think in our discussions, we have basically said that this is such a unique thing and there aren't really any other entities that would be local that would be able to take on that management.
Okay.
From others I've talked to that have had like outside management companies come in, it's been a disaster. That happened in La Crosse County with, it was Mulder. And
Meaning non-local?
yeah.
Okay.
And so it really isn't something that we've looked at, to be honest with you.
And that's all okay with our,
Yeah.
okay.
And am I correct that BSJ manages Northland?
They do. They manage Northland. They have since the mid 80s.
Okay.
They also manage, it's called Manuka Manor, I believe. It's in Galesville. Okay. So that's also city owned.
And I'm just kind of curious, like with the hiring firm for the finance director, like, do we have any feedback from?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah.
Great.
So I've had several conversations with different people involved there, that it's been a very smooth process. I had earlier on conversations with mayor of the city of Westby, who said it's a great relationship. They do profit sharing too. So the city of Westby has been able to put aside about $100,000 a year to reinvest in capital at the facility as well. So haven't heard anything negative. And BSJ has an excellent reputation, I think, in the community that if something were going on, I think we would have heard about it by now. Any other questions on that item? No? Okay. The updated salary schedule and individual placements have been shared out to the department heads. Department heads were instructed to share individual placements with their staff. The new salary schedule goes into effect on July 7th. We're working on the development of the budget worksheets to be completed and sent out to the department heads in addition to the salary worksheets. So that's been just a little bit of manual inputting and all that fun stuff that Holly and the finance department and with assistance from John from Highway have been able to put those together. And then I did the worksheets for the salary. We do scenarios for cost of living adjustments, and you have to go in and enter. It's all manual. So that's done. So we're hoping to get those sent out either today or Monday to the department heads. We'll be bringing a proposal to the Land Conservation and Education Committee next week on Thursday for creation of a committee or commission to address land resiliency and flood mitigation. In our conversations, the proposal would be basically to restructure the Flood Mitigation Alliance, update goals, look at basically a little bit different perspective with that alliance that's kind of fell off the last couple of years. So more to come on that at the committee meeting. I've started annual performance evaluations for the non-elected department heads. I hope to have those evaluations completed by the end of the month. And I'd like to think they are not too painful, right, Phil? You're the
We're already late and never get back.
Yeah.
Be shorter if you behave yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And then finally, because board members have asked for updates on this, the plea/sentencing hearing for Kayla Fortney is scheduled for July 30th at 3:30. So
The what? Free?
plea/sentencing hearing. That's all I know on that item. Going to attend.
Good report.
Yeah, you can just add it.
Okay.
Any questions for Cassie on her report?
Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is to schedule annual performance review for administrative coordinator. It seems trying to do it in this meeting would be too much. How does the committee want to proceed? Tricia, how has the return been from board members?
I'm delinquent.
I'm too.
I am too.
I'm not.
Your turn.
Way to go, Dave.
Well done.
I see, at first I thought it was for county board members, but I tore that one out.
I'm still missing 11.
That's a start. I think best to have the human resources to compile them and give us a report.
But that is including those 3 people.
That's including us?
11.
So you-
We're part of the- Okay,
Sounds like something for the surgeon at harm's to handle.
Wait, the 11 that you're missing include us 3.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so you have 8 in hand.
You have 11 empty jail cells over there?
so,
I need 11 total.
yeah.
Good hand.
Okay, well, you'll get me that list and I'll try to shake those trees.
Ham sandwich.
But what,
The ham sandwich.
does the whole committee want to be involved in presenting the review? And if so, can we pick a day? Tricia and I will work together at developing the review.
Just tell us
Just tell you
what day. I'm available
Okay,
anytime of day, any of the week.
what does the week of July 22nd look like for people?
I'm good.
Did you say you're gone? You're good. We have a board meeting
Mhm.
on the 25th or the 29th.
Good.
Charlie, did you get yours in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't, okay, well, that's
Something to be said.
not someone I could tell to do.
Do you see this as being a special meeting of the committee?
I see this being a special meeting of the committee in session.
It's going into full session.
Hey, just pick a date and
Either of those days
Yeah,
works for me. Yeah,
Pick a date and away we go.
Yeah, the 24th. The
What if we did the 24th at like 3:30
I'm good.
You don't have to check.
or in the morning? I got it. Okay, so is that, I don't know what that means. Do you like your sister?
He wants this recorded.
it's also my granddaughter's birthday.
how about the
Okay, so that's not a good day.
can we do the 22nd at 3 or 3:30? Monday?
Okay with that.
Yeah, we'll be done by 6.
Are there any other meetings going on?
Be done by 6.
I just have something at 6.
I have something at 6:30. So
I mean, it's not going to get done. I feel like I hope it gets done by 6. What are you going to talk about?
That's a Monday?
Yeah.
Mondays we're good. We have a guy that shows up in milk, so.
There you go.
So what about Monday, Tricia, Monday the 22nd at 3:30? 4?
3:30 is fine.
Cassie, can you be there for
Yeah,
your
I can be
review?
So aren't you gonna be gone that week? Or is that the week?
No, I'm gone the week before.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
That'll get, then
Did you say
Tricia, you and
again?
I can touch base on who I
Obviously,
need to talk to
PO days all
and
year,
how we want
taking the
to.
whole week off.
I emailed you the list of who
Okay.
I do not have.
Okay,
You know who you are.
I outed myself.
all right. my thought around making sure that board members engaged is because they are part of committees, so they would have feedback from department heads if needed for the review, right? That's the thought.
Yeah.
Because just having department heads like that seems a little imbalanced, but we still need feedback on how things are functioning. So that is why I thought the board members would be important to have them engaged in it. Because do we need department head feedback in a different way? Or should it come through the committee?
I think the process is designed to go through the committees.
That's what I'm just,
Because if I have a problem, I'm told that I should go to my committee.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yes, right?
Yes,
And that's what all department heads should be doing.
okay. I just want to state that because someone
That's the
said, what
hierarchy.
about department head feedback? And I thought that was in part of the process already.
Zero.
Is it clear that that's part of the process?
Well-
Do committees and department heads know that that's the process?
Well, seeing as 11 of us haven't actually turned it in, I think it's an opportunity to say, this is you need to be also checking in with your department head to see. I mean, I don't think we've missed our opportunity for clarity by our own delinquency.
Right.
But as a matter of hierarchy, she supervises department heads. I don't supervise her.
Right.
You supervise her.
Right. So I don't want to it's not a 360
So it should come
review.
through the-
So-
Yeah, understood.
But I want to make sure board supervisors are thinking about that as they're providing feedback.
Committee chairs should be
Amy.
thinking that over.
I had my hand raised for a totally different reason, by the way. I think Cassie does a great job. I think actually that our employee evals offer us an opportunity to give her some feedback as well. So, board members, you could look to those for some input as well. But what I wanted to share was that we got 2 new portable hand washing stations. So for community events this summer, I just wanted to raise awareness where there might not be hand washing. Please reach out to me and we can see if we can bring those to events. So I plan to take them to music in the park moving forward, but if anyone else knows of events, please let me know. Thank you.
Could use one at the dairy breakfast.
I know, I thought about that. I'm sorry they came in a week too late.
Kids just love that mud.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're good on the review. I think that, any agenda items for future meetings?
I have a couple.
Yep.
That Tricia and I have kind of been on our docket for a while and we think we'll have time to address. Our grievance policy really needs to be updated. It hasn't been updated since 2015. Doesn't reflect.
That's funny. I just did that. in
my
my
role
job,
at all.
too.
Imagine IT.
What?
Doesn't mention IT.
We'd also like to have a discussion on drug testing our employees. Right now, we drug test every employee. So we'd like a discussion on that. And we pay for
Every
it.
employee for hire?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
That's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money. So we'd like to have a conversation about that. We'll have the RFP for emergency management, as Phil said, that'll be back in time for next month for Gen Gov. And then a discussion on cost of living increases for 2025 as part of the budget process, as part of the policy that you just approved. That's what I had.
Great.
I got nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
And then we'll have Connor's recording of Teams meetings
Yeah.
that'll come back.
And then we'll know after, depending on what the county board determines on solar farm, we'll determine if that needs to be back on our agenda.
Donuts.
And then whatever Nikki didn't do, the interim, that would be on yes too. Oh boy. Wow. Sorry about that.
Violence.
Okay, anything else?
Adjourn, please.
Okay, next meeting, August 7th, 9:30 a.m. And then I got a motion from Dave to adjourn. And can I get a second from Wade? Because the show is, they're working on their show together. All in favor, signify by aye.
There go.
Aye.
Egan.
Lawler, Egan.